Midnight settles over the world like a thick velvet curtain, its silence broken only by the gentle hum of appliances and the distant creak of settling timbers. For most, these sounds are the comforting background noise of home, a subtle reminder of safety, of warmth, of the familiar. But what if, in the dead of night, the walls themselves begin to speak? What if the ordinary becomes a conduit for something far more sinister? This is the unsettling reality explored in the latest wave of contemporary horror, where the phenomenon known as voices in the walls has captured imaginations and chilled listeners to the bone. In October 2022, a collaborative storytelling event called 9 to Midnight took its audience deep into the heart of this terror with a story titled Voices in the Vents, crafted by Rat Grimes. The tale centers on a family whose peaceful evenings are shattered by eerie whispers emanating from their ventilation system. What begins as faint murmurs soon grows into persistent voices echoing through the ductwork like lost souls seeking release. The family's attempts to trace the source lead only to deeper confusion and mounting dread. The house is old, its history murky, and every attempt to explain the sounds with reason only draws them closer to the edge of something unexplainable. This fusion of horror and suspense isn't limited to fictional storytelling. In the world of audio horror podcasts, these themes have taken on new life. Scary Stories Told in the Dark, a show renowned for its chilling narratives, recently aired an episode titled Whispers from the Walls on May 4th, 2020. In this tale, listeners are introduced to a young couple who move into a historic building, eager to start a new chapter in their lives. The walls, thick with decades of history, soon begin to betray their secrets. At first, it's the sound of footsteps, soft, deliberate, pacing just beyond their bedroom. Then come the voices, hoarse, fragmented, impossible to understand, yet unmistakably present. The couple's nights become sleepless, their days marked by paranoia, as they struggle to determine whether the voices are a product of their own fear or something far more real. Just weeks later, on May 18th, 2025, Scary Stories Told in the Dark followed up with The Dead Remember, a story that pushes the concept even further. Here, the walls do not merely whisper, they bear witness. The protagonist, a solitary man living in a refurbished apartment complex, begins to experience hallucinations, or so he believes. Shadows flicker just at the edge of vision, and every time he presses his ear to the wall, he hears fragments of long-forgotten conversations, arguments, and sobs. As the nights wear on, the voices become clearer, more insistent, weaving together a tapestry of tragedy that played out inside those same rooms decades before. The realization dawns. The very structure of the building is saturated with memory, and some memories refuse to be silent. Meanwhile, the podcast The Terror Cellar has delved into true accounts that mirror these fictional horrors. Their episode, Two Shadows PT1, A Teenage Haunting, released April 18th, 2025, recounts the story of a teenager who begins to notice shadowy figures slipping across her bedroom walls after midnight. At first, it's brushed aside as a trick of the light, but soon subtle sounds, barely perceptible whispers, join the procession. The voices are not her own, nor are they those of her family. They speak in fractured sentences, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying, sometimes calling her name from the darkness. Investigations into the home's history reveal a legacy of loss and violence, hinting at the possibility that not all who enter the house ever truly leave. What is it about the idea of voices in the walls that so deeply unsettles us? In these recent stories, the terror lies not in the monsters we can see, but in the suspicion that the places we consider safe may conceal secrets. The walls, silent witnesses to years of life, love, conflict, and pain, might not be as inert as we hope. Instead, they could be repositories for everything that's ever happened inside them. The very act of listening, a child with an ear pressed to a cool, painted surface, a sleepless adult straining to catch the source of a whisper, becomes an invitation to hear what should have remained hidden. Contemporary horror creators have harnessed this fear, making use of modern audio technology to amplify the dread. In podcasts and audio dramas, the intimate medium of sound allows listeners to experience the terror directly, blurring the line between fiction and reality. In Voices in the Vents, the use of stereo effects and layered recordings make the voices seem to drift and echo, as though they are moving through the listener's own home. Similarly, Whispers from the Walls and The Dead Remember deploy binaural audio techniques, immersing the audience in the sensation that the voices are just inches away, impossible to ignore, impossible to forget. But these stories are not mere entertainment. They tap into a primal fear, the anxiety that our homes, meant to shield us from the dangers of the outside world, might instead be haunted by the echoes of the past. The concept of haunted houses is ancient, but the recent surge in tales about voices in the walls reflects a modern twist. Today's listeners crave atmosphere, subtlety, and psychological horror, a departure from the jump scares and monsters of decades past. The terror is quieter, more insidious, and perhaps more relatable. The popularity of these narratives points to a deeper truth about the human experience. We are by nature creatures of memory. We imbue our environments with meaning, associating places with events, emotions, and people. When those places seem to remember as well, when the walls themselves bear witness, it challenges our sense of control. The stories featured in The Terror Cellar blur the line between fact and fiction, reminding us that many real people have experienced phenomena they cannot explain. Shadowy figures, unexplained noises, voices that seem to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. These are not just the stuff of ghost stories, but recurring motifs in reports from around the world. As midnight approaches and the world grows quiet, the imagination fills the silence with possibility. The next time you find yourself lying awake, listening to the subtle creaks and sighs of your home, consider what might be hiding just beyond your field of vision. Perhaps the walls are only settling, or perhaps they are trying to tell you something. In the darkness, in the stillness, the line between reality and nightmare becomes thin. And sometimes, if you listen closely, you might just hear the voices in the walls.